Bueno, ¿se escucha bien? Buenos días a todos. Muchísimas gracias por estar aquí a esta hora tan temprana de la mañana para escuchar las maravillosas ponencias que van a hacer FARSHID, MOUSSAVI y BELINDA, TATO. Ellas van a explicar su obra y el impacto que tienen sus edificios en la ciudad. Después de una jornada tan hermosa como tuvimos ayer con las ponencias de escritores que nos narran con palabras maravillosas cómo es la ciudad o cómo debe ser la ciudad. Después también de participaciones tan interesantes como la de mi alcaldesa de Madrid, Manuela Carmena, cómo debe ser o cómo se debe gestionar la ciudad desde el punto de vista social, desde el punto de vista organizativo. Tenemos ahora mismo la oportunidad de escuchar a dos arquitectas en ejercicio de la profesión que nos van a hablar de sus proyectos. Yo creo que esto es especialmente interesante en el Congreso, que hablamos de ciudad, como decía la alcaldesa, mejor arquitectura, más ciudad, quizá, o era Clos quien lo dijo ayer, ¿no? Mejor arquitectura, pues ellas van a explicar esta mejor arquitectura. Tienen varias cosas en común FARSHID y BELINDA. Una de ellas es que ambas son además profesoras en Harvard, están acostumbradas también a enseñar, a transmitir todo aquello que los arquitectos y arquitectas debemos saber para llevar a la realidad los hermosos pensamientos que otros tienen sobre los espacios de habitar, en este caso sobre la ciudad. Esta es una de las cosas que tienen en común. FARSHID es iraní, nació en Irán y su oficina la tiene establecida en Londres. BELINDA es de Madrid y además de tener su oficina Ecosistemas Urbanos establecida en Madrid, ahora mismo tiene oficina también en Estados Unidos. También hay otra cosa entonces que une a ambas arquitectas y es que están acostumbradas a trabajar en el extranjero y a mirar con una mirada amplia todo lo que sucede a su alrededor. Entonces yo creo que lo mejor es que empecemos ya con FARSHID. FARSHID, you are going to start now. Ella va a explicar los proyectos en inglés y posteriormente también el debate será en inglés. Afterwards we'll have our dialogue in English, so it will be easier for you. Pero creo que como todos tienen traducción simultánea no habrá ningún problema. Lo importante es que nos sentamos cómodos y que sepamos cómo un arquitecto es capaz de construir en la ciudad. Gracias.
Well, thank you for waking up so early morning to be here listening to us, and thank you for inviting me to be part of the discussion. I didn't know I would see myself up there. So I thought that the title, Less Architecture, More City, was very provocative. My initial thought was, well, what do you mean? You know, how can you have the city if you have no architecture? But I think it's a great question. So maybe we can we not switch me off and just have my slide? I would like my slide big. Can we do that? Switch me off, because I would like to see my slides very big. So I think let's unpack the subtitle of this session, which was called The City as a Project. So the city is made out of, you know, open spaces between buildings, but also buildings that are, you know, more and more built and shaped, envisioned by the private sector, not by the public sector. And then there are, of course, all the people who come there with all kinds of different desires and wishes to do different things in the city. And I think where the challenge really is where architecture can somehow influence and orientate those buildings that are shaping the city through private investment for the benefit of the public. I think that's where, if you like, the project lies. So we have planned public spaces in the city, which are publicly funded. I would say those are the ones that, you know, they are not, we need more of them, of course, and we are investing in less of them. But I think for an architect, that's not where you know, I can kind of talk about the challenges. You know, these are examples of our publicly funded public spaces, streets and, you know, plazas, parks. This is the Barcelona park that we worked on some years ago as part of Foreign Office Architects. But, you know, we find public spaces in buildings. So the Tate Modern Turbine Hall is also a kind of a space for the public, publicly funded also, or mostly. I would say the Pantheon is also a kind of a public space. Again, it's not about buildings as opposed to the open space, which is sort of public space. I think buildings incorporate and provide space for the public. The Yokohama Ferry Terminal, which which we designed a number of years ago, is another public project where we added a huge kind of, let's say, public space to it, which was not the primary or core function of the building. And, you know, through the way it was designed as a series of floors that would kind of branch off of each other, it would create a kind of a meandering space and encourage people to not simply pass through the terminal, but stop and use it as a kind of a space where they would encounter each other and do other things than just the core function of the terminal for traveling to other places. But these are, even though this project was not in any way easy because of the design of it, I would say in terms of its kind of the foundation of introducing this component, it was much easier than in private projects, in my experience, because here we were working for the public sector. We were working for the Port and Harbor Bureau, we were working for the central government, and so of course they were invested and very interested in this new component that we were introducing to the project. Now there are unplanned public spaces that people find in the city, and they're often, again, inside of architecture, buildings, I would say. So this is the undercraft or the ground floor of the Hong Kong Shanghai Bank by Foster and Partners. The lobby is not closed, it's simply covered at street level. That's the lobby mode at the top. And below is the same space. Every Sunday becomes a venue for Filipino women to picnic, and it's a huge gathering, and it's a regular event that happens, and it's a building that has created the possibility of this kind of event. We've had recently Starbucks in America. As you may have heard, there was this incident where someone was kicked out because of whatever reason, and following that, now Starbucks have changed their policy, and all Starbucks are open to anyone to sit for as long as they want and do whatever they want and not buy anything from them. I would say Starbucks is a new kind of space for the public. And I think these photographs are interesting to also remind ourselves that making public space is not simply to go and have leisure and to sit and do nothing. That space for the public includes, providing opportunities where people work, people meet, people shop, people view exhibitions, and that's what the city is about. That's why people go to the city, and that's where I think the relevance of architecture lies as part of the construction of the city, in the way it produces all kinds of platforms for being a citizen. There have been strategically planned public spaces inside private buildings, privately financed building, going back a very long time. The Galleria in Milan has a kind of a public route through it. Of course, there are other kind of motives in getting people perhaps to shop for longer on the cover. The Southdale shopping mall that really started the whole kind of development of shopping malls in America is another one. The John Portman hotels are, of course, again, you can stroll in them, you can be in them, you don't have to stay in a room, you don't have to buy a coffee. One of my favorite examples is 590 Madison Avenue in New York. This is one example of many, many buildings where the city of New York allowed developers to build taller in return for providing publicly accessible private spaces. And these are, some of them are 24-hour open, some of them are less, and they have more or less regulation to them. The Occupy movement, the recent kind of uprising, let's say, that happened in Wall Street, really profited from this network of publicly accessible private spaces that now populate the ground floor, sometimes a level below and above as well. We've had a kind of various opportunities of introducing these kind of spaces inside projects that we were asked to work on. A shopping mall on the eastern side of Istanbul, where we introduced a public square right in the middle. So this was supposed to be an indoor shopping mall. And as you see, there is a public square that has become very much part of the city and part of how the development works, outside of the hours of shopping. And it provides a new platform and a new possibility for people to gather and do different things. We are moving to privately funded projects, where I think really the challenge lies and where you need more architecture. We were asked also a number of years ago to work on, to be part of a redevelopment of the city of Leicester, retail-led. And what you see here as a chunk was supposed to be, seamless and fully connected with the rest of the mall. We came on board and we said, what if instead of the top section where the orange part was the covered route, just attaching the whole block to the rest of the mall, what if you open it and you only attach it where the route is and create a street? So this, I don't think people would realize this was a kind of an architect's proposal, but I'm proud that I made a street in the city of kind of Leicester. It brings other desires to this development. It makes the development active, during times when the shopping mall closes. It's a new street in Leicester. Now, it becomes harder and harder when you don't have the larger scale to deal with, where you can introduce the square or you can introduce the street. So when faced with a department store, as we walked this morning here, I looked at El Corte Inglés opposite and I said to my kind of colleagues as we were walking in, is this a car park? Well, that's what, you see another El Corte Inglés, and it's not just El Corte Inglés I'm picking at. It's these buildings that actually look back at the city, and where shopping in them is like shopping like anywhere else. So we questioned this in Leicester, and we said, well, when you shop, you want to know where you are, and gone the days when you want to be trapped, so that you shop until drop. We do want to be connected to the weather, to the city, and to know, to kind of be empowered with the possibility to leave. So we proposed to kind of introduce to the department store an envelope which is semi-transparent. It has 2 layers of glass with a pattern frit onto the glass that produces a kind of a moire pattern and gives the department store the privacy that its clutter doesn't project onto the street, which is what they would be worried about. So that, and on the inside, instead of this typical situation, we then get this situation where you have views of the city, you have daylight. It's let's say, contribution to the public is at a different scale, but I think it is absolutely to do with people's experience of everyday life in the city. Now, a museum, a private museum in America, where, as you know, the minute you go in, you need to pay. And that makes the building exclusive, not inclusive. Not everybody can enter. So here we said, well, how can we contribute? Where can architecture influence this private museum to kind of open up and be more inclusive? So one of the first decisions we made was take the triangular site and say, rather than cover the whole site, we make a 4-story building to generate a public plaza so that people who would not enter the museum could interact and engage with museum activities that would spill outdoors, as you see here. The next decision, which we often judge buildings, again, their publicness by the kind of the open space that they have. Well, I think this building has a kind of a radical, I would claim, aspect, which is that we said we would put the paid gallery on the 4th floor, which means that the 3 levels below you can come in and use without paying a ticket. So we shifted the point where you buy the ticket to the 4th floor. And that, I think, makes the building far more inclusive. The next thing we did was to take the stair. This stair, you would never see it. I've taken two of the kind of faces of the building away to show you this. It's a big stair, and there is a lot at stake in this stair. It's a double-decker stair. We put one of the fire stairs underneath the public stair to double the number of ways that people could go up. We also turned the fire escape, which is in this yellow route, into a sound gallery so that people who would not be paying to go to the top floor gallery would experience art of a different kind, since contemporary art comes in all kinds of forms and scales. So we try to spill the art out so that it would kind of, if you like, hit the people outside of the main gallery. Now the top floor, the top stair is a kind of a social stair. The interesting extra feature of this stair is that we extended, this is the top floor paid gallery, we extended the stair above this so that people who would not be paying to see the gallery by entering could actually view it from the top. So you see here the stair and that view over to the main gallery. Of course, it's for everyone. It's also exhibitions when they are being set up, the paid gallery is closed, and to be able to see them from above during construction is a kind of a new experience that the stair provides. Now, on the outside, the building, in a way, is not so dissimilar to a department store where it wants to be inward-looking. It's a contemporary art museum. It doesn't have a collection. It needs to be flexible. There are not a lot of windows as a result. And the question is, how does it engage with the city? How do we define, as architects, the threshold between the inside and the outside? And can we speak, if you like, to the city rather than turn away? So the exterior cladding is in a kind of a black mirror stainless steel that, together with the shape of the building, generates different colors, different kind of shapes, depending on where you view the building from. There are 4 apexes of the building that point your kind of head towards the sky, and there are 4 of them that point towards the ground, and they engage you. And I think that the city is also about these kinds of moments where, your head goes up to the sky and it goes to the and where it kind of sparks moments of reflection. Now, the stainless steel panels are, there's a kind of oil canning that we've introduced to the panels, as you see better on the right, and so they refract what gets projected onto them. And they play with the scenery around, with the moving scenery, clouds, people, cars, and so the building changes as what's around it also kind of changes. It also throws light onto the pavement in these hoops of light, and if you like, extends or produces a new landscape between the hard pavement and the hard building. Something new, a third thing happens as a result. And I think these are also part of our experiences of the city. The window reveals are clad in mirror stainless steel. They displace what is lateral, they bring it frontal, and they bring it into the gallery. And so when you're looking out from the galleries, you are seeing a new kind of landscape that doesn't actually exist in reality in that specific configuration, but it is produced between the urban scape outside and the building inside. Light enters through the window jambs also, and kind of new kind of relationships are set up, created throughout the day. I think these are part of our experiences, or can be, in, for example, going to a museum. Now, what happens when we're designing a kind of a residential building? Where does the city stop? Where does it start? Who are we designing for? I think when it comes to the private sector developing housing, it has, which is in London and in many cities now in America, it's mostly the case. What we forget are the people we are actually designing for. So let's remind ourselves of some of the different kinds of household that we should be designing for today. So here is Miriam. She's 20 years old. She's a single mother and relies on her friends for childcare. This is a trainee midwife who has a son, lives with 6 other adults in a co-living setup. This is Janet and Margaret, emotionally dependent on each other. They usually share a bedroom, but neither would call themselves a lesbian. They regularly host Bible study groups at their flat. Vernon sublets with his boyfriend from another couple. They eat out all the time. They hardly ever use their kitchen. Abdul is a kitchen porter, rents the smallest of 4 bedrooms in an illegally sublet council property to make some extra money. He repairs phones in his bedroom. David is a medicine student, runs a mixed-sex scout group in his neighborhood, which meets in the park because there is not any shared facilities in his housing block. Seb is a grandfather of 2, runs a yoga studio in his house, or flat, I would say, and as he feels lonely in the evenings, he's the first to propose neighborhood parties. This is probably a more typical household that most private housing developments design for, with a nanny and a cleaner. This is Petrie, a fan of communal living arrangements, who rents different rooms, and every time one goes, there is Airbnb that has helped her recently to fill up the vacant room. Patrick and Patience live with 8 children in a 3-bedroom flat. Their oldest daughter wants to go to university but cannot because she needs to stay behind to help her mother raise her, younger siblings. So these show the plethora of household types that we have today, and this is what we need to design for, and this is where we architects need to champion a different kind of thinking about the city and about the residential buildings in the city, so that we cater for the different desires and needs of people who come to want to be in the city, but are also very, very different. Now, if we look at these images, this is why people come to the city, and to be together, all these different people, and they are together during the day when they work and when they socialize. But this is what happens when we design housing. So we design housing for for luxury kind of level. We design social housing, we design student housing, and we segregate people into different kinds of buildings, and which then reciprocates in different sectors or regions of the city. So people get segregated. So they come to the city to be together, but they find themselves segregated when it comes to recent housing. And in the cases where we have policies, when we are supposed to somehow introduce one into the other, we are failing them because we put one next to each other, but in the way that least actually produces any kind of equity, let's say, or any idea that they are actually equal. So there is, I think, hope in what people are actually doing themselves. If you look at neighborhood apps where they reach out to each other, where they do things for each other, because they recognize that our differences are also our strengths. So how do we bring these into a building? When we recently worked on a project in Paris on this kind of red spot that you see here, this is our kind of composition of residents, students, affordable housing, social housing, and there is only the top level that is sold at market rate. Now, this is, of course, not the decision of the architect. We were blessed with this kind of brief, given that the mayor of Nanterre is a communist. Now, the experience of this, the question is then, how do we express, and what kind of structure do we provide? What is at stake when you bring people so close to each other? And what's the relationship to their kind of urban context? Now, usually a kind of a long slab, you would have the corridor, the kind of the modernist kind of block, dreamt of these streets in the sky that frankly kind of failed. And are failing even more today, because people very different would live next to each other and would share this street. And the question is whether, that's the moment where you want to encourage people to become friends, or whether they should be given the choice of doing that somewhere else. It brings all kinds of problems, the corridor, of the tensions that it brings between kind of neighbors that would live very differently. Now, today, it's becoming even more acute as we have Airbnb, being another kind of function of these residential blocks. These are realities of the city that we need to take into account when we are, in our kind of offices drawing the perfect kind of layout. This is what people, experience. Where, I won't read it to you. So we said, let's get rid of the corridor. So here we've arranged the kind of the slab in a way that every 2 units share a small landing and core, so that they would be a little bit like, they would have a lot of privacy, and they would have, of course, double aspect, etc. The next way to empower this kind of diverse residents to configure their units as they want was to where the location of the structure. So what you see black is the structure, what you see red is non-load bearing, so that people could knock down walls if they want an extra, one less bedroom, or they would put up a wall if they, their teenage kind of son or daughter would come back to live with them, and so on. So they are highly reconfigurable. You get these double aspect units. And what you also get is the possibility of having outdoor space at both ends. Let's not forget that people who come to live into the city is to have those extra possibilities that the city gives you, but what they lose is space and privacy and the possibility to have, for example, gardens. So here we said, if we shift the shape, frankly, it's not the floor plates, it's the shape of the floor plates slightly 2 degrees along the length. We make one shade the other, but we also create 2 different kinds of outdoor space at either end, like a kind of a back garden and a front garden, that are also, because of the shifting nature of the floors, they are varying in scale. So suddenly, the original brief that was just to provide a 2, 3, and 4 bedroom suddenly become an array of different apartment choices that you could have, you could choose from. So choice, I think, is something that people would want in such buildings, something that they rarely ever do have. Something that when you go to luxury houses, we spend forever trying to find the house that we like because we want to have that choice. And we too easily give it up when we are designing multi-story residential building. So then the next thing was how to express these residents, and we picked all the elements that would be visible in the urban context, which are colored, and we said we are going to treat them exactly the same, whether it's a student or whether it's a social housing block, etc. There are simple elements that architects deal with, it's screens and it's floor slabs and it's handrails, but there is, again, I think, a lot at stake. We chose materials that are long enduring, that require little maintenance, because when you buy an apartment or a flat, the last thing you want is the heavy burden of lots of maintenance bills every 4 years or so. So this is a building that I think will not burden people as often. Now, then there are the two sides. I won't go too much into detail, but on one side, what we call the loggias give people screens, sliding screens that they can kind of open or close, so that the loggias can either feel more part of the urban context or be more closed and be more private, and therefore you will do different things on this side of your apartment. The dividing walls between neighbors are glass with a kind of a mirror-backed film, so that the city comes in, so that you don't have to kind of put your head out to be part of the urban context. And in fact, every single apartment has a unique view of the city, because the projection of that it receives of the outside is totally unique at that point. Then there are the solid walls that you see in darker colors that are part of the load-bearing structure, and they too participate in this kind of dialogue between the building and the context. And we have also clad them with glass mirror-backed film, so that, if you like, the solid melts into reflections of the context. So here it is, if they would be solid, and that, so the budget for this building was not high, and so you will see that the frames are thick. We don't have sliding doors because we couldn't afford them. But I think there are still lots of choices within those that one can make, that do make a difference in terms of your experience of living at this point of the city in this building. The balconies, contrary to the loggias, are designed to be extremely open, like a front garden. So the handrails are glass. There are 3 scenarios where people have less or more privacy. So if you want to be more sociable, if you are perhaps in a co-living situation, you might want the right one, where the neighbor above can see you and vice versa, whereas the others give you more privacy. These two, again, have those dividing walls that I showed you that are not kind of solid. This is the triple height balcony, and this is the student. So you see that the student is treated exactly the same way. And in fact, I remember when the mayor came to visit the building just before opening, he said, but the students are never going to want to leave. So I don't think that we didn't make the space larger. I think we made a difference to that space through the way we treated it, and through the way we treated it, equally to the rest of the residents in the building. This is the handrail seen through the apartment interior. You see there is a little frit there just to kind of let you know that there is a handrail there, but this frit soon disappears as it rises to the top of the handrail, so that light can reach plants if you choose to use your balcony to keep plants, which is one of the uses we have of our balconies. Again, this is not about grand gesture, it's not about creating the plaza, but this is a way to make a difference to people's experience of the city. We see that different kinds of residents already in the first week were in the building. Maybe this is a kind of a businessman. Clearly he's on the move, but he's also busy continuing to work. This is a small family with their daughter. This is clearly a work-live situation. During a move, this person is having to also carry on working as student. A more typical family where it was very important for them to sit down and have lunch, and that's during the move, and they set up the table on the balcony before they furnish the interior. A kind of an example of the significance of doing a small shift in the shape of the floor plate allows this resident to look at the grand arch and look at the grand axe without having to bend out. And the amount of, no matter what the architect does, of course, you only start the beginning and you don't really determine how people are going to live there. We put wood on the floor of the balconies thinking that it would be appreciated. It was covered by AstroTurf, as you see here on to the right. So I think the building is unique because it's very urban. You see, this is one moment where you're standing on the loggia at one end of the balcony and you're looking through the apartment to the other side, to your balcony. So they're very urban, but they're very private. And the life can pour out to the outside, and yet, you know, people who are so different can live together next to each other. We have designed extra larger, if you like, lobbies with fixed furniture so that if people choose to become friends, they can do so in the lobby. I think I will leave this at this point. Thank you.
Belinda.
Okay, gracias. Thank you very much. ¿Me entendéis el sonido, verdad? Bueno, buenos días. Muchas gracias por la invitación a la Fundación. Muchas gracias por la fantástica lecture de FARSHID. Bueno, y muchas gracias por haber permitido estar ayer y hoy aquí, seguir inspirándome. Seguimos trabajando y seguimos aprendiendo todos los días. Y bueno, es un placer haber escuchado todas estas ponencias. Bueno, mi nombre es Belinda TATO. Vengo a contar un poco los proyectos de ecosistema urbano y cómo nosotros nos aproximamos a la ciudad, ¿no? Tardamos unos años en ponernos el nombre o encontrar un nombre que considerábamos apropiado. Y bueno, nos gustó esta palabra, esta idea del ecosistema, ¿no? Que es la relación entre lo natural y lo artificial en la ciudad, y también el ecosistema del trabajo, ¿no? La oficina es un lugar donde las ideas fluyen, se intercambian, se mejoran, se destruyen, se repiten, etcétera, con lo cual es una especie de juego, de movimiento fluido que no hace más que mejorar, ¿no? Y seguimos mejorando, repito, y aprendiendo de cada proceso, ¿no? Bueno, siempre digo que tuve la oportunidad y la suerte de estudiar en la ETSAM, también estuve un año en la Bartlett. En la ETSAM tuve a profesores, algunos de ellos en esta sala, en los años 90, ¿no? Y fue una experiencia maravillosa, pero es verdad que en esos años, no en la ETSAM, sino en el mundo entero, se tenía muy poquita, tenía menor protagonismo la componente social, ¿no? Es decir, todo el tema de la arquitectura y el diseño urbano se aproximaba principalmente desde el aspecto infraestructural y físico, y no se consideraba tanto, no se le daba tanta importancia a la condición social. En ese sentido, a mí me gusta, o a lo largo de estos años he ido aprendiendo y descubriendo un poco, como ha comentado FARSHID, ¿no? Para quién estamos trabajando, ¿no? Independientemente si trabajamos para un gobierno local, un gobierno central, una agencia internacional, estamos trabajando para las personas. Estamos dejando nuestra impronta para que las personas puedan vivir mejor, tanto dentro de un espacio como este, estupendo, o como en la ciudad, ¿no? En ese sentido, me encanta esta frase, ¿no? De que enviamos a los estudiantes a la escuela para que aprendan cuando realmente el aprendizaje se produce en el camino a la escuela, ¿no? Y en ese sentido, a todos los que en esta sala tenéis capacidad o tenemos capacidad para transformar la realidad desde el punto de vista de la arquitectura, del diseño urbano, que somos absolutamente responsables del aprendizaje y de la capacidad de mejorar a la ciudadanía, ¿no? Ayer me preguntaban ahí fuera qué consideraba yo que era más ajustado, si la ciudad hacía ciudadanos o los ciudadanos hacen ciudad. Creo que no es ninguna de las dos cosas, que son ambas, es recíproco, y en ese sentido los diseñadores y los arquitectos tenemos la capacidad de generar una mejor ciudadanía mejorando la ciudad. En ese mismo sentido, también este entendimiento de la realidad que pasa desde una información satelital, ¿no? De entender la ciudad desde el punto de vista de las infraestructuras y desde la vista de pájaro, a un entendimiento mucho más local, mucho más profundo, mucho más informado, porque hoy por hoy tenemos una capacidad para tener mucha más información de cómo la gente se mueve, cómo la gente siente, cómo la gente se relaciona, etcétera, etcétera. En ese sentido nos empodera a los diseñadores para proveer soluciones mucho más informadas. Bueno, he hecho una clasificación así sobre cómo hemos entendido a lo largo de estos años la arquitectura, ¿no? Hay algunas interferencias con la presentación de FARSHID, porque indudablemente hay conexiones, ¿no? Y me parece muy importante enfatizar esta capacidad catalizadora de la arquitectura. Me encanta el término que acuñó Jaime Lerner de acupuntura urbana, porque verdaderamente yo creo que la arquitectura puede generar acupuntura y puede mejorar, paliar o curar procesos que no están bien en una ciudad, ¿no? En ese sentido, bueno, la primera categoría es la arquitectura como un elemento didáctico. Esto es un proyecto en Rivas, hacia Madrid, en las afueras de Madrid, donde el tejido es absolutamente suburbano, donde la calidad del espacio público, bueno, desde nuestro punto de vista deja mucho que desear, y desde donde queríamos, el concurso y el proyecto trataba de diseñar una escuela infantil, pero nos parecía absolutamente importante proveer de un espacio público que sirviese como un catalizador social y como un elemento de espacio público vinculado a esa escuela, ¿no? En ese sentido, como muchos de los que sois arquitectos sabéis, tuvimos que hacer el pino puente, en el sentido de que el presupuesto siempre es muy limitado y lo tenemos que estirar para hacer posible, con el mismo presupuesto, no solo generar la arquitectura, sino el espacio público que iba enfrente, pero de nuevo esa capacidad didáctica, ¿no? En esta latitud es necesario no solo generar una arquitectura que sea eficiente energéticamente, porque existe la tecnología y el conocimiento y la capacidad técnica para hacerlo, sino además trabajar con el agua. Entonces nos pareció importante que como experiencia urbana y experiencia didáctica para todos los usuarios de esa escuela, pero también para los habitantes de Rivas, pudiésemos reciclar toda la totalidad del agua, no solo las aguas grises, sino las aguas negras. En ese sentido, el espacio público se convirtió básicamente en un espacio público donde trabajamos con una laguna de macrofitas y donde las aguas residuales se están filtrando, se están limpiando y se están almacenando para poder regar un área verde que de otra manera no podríamos permitirnos, ¿no? Y luego la componente social, ¿no? ¿Cómo podría este edificio de verdad generar un espacio de encuentro en un entorno, en un contexto que, como he mostrado, es bastante suburbano y con una serie de deficiencias? Aquí se ve la laguna de macrofitas cuando ya están crecidas, ¿no? Es una imagen de verano, y de nuevo cómo se ha convertido en un espacio de encuentro. Y la cuestión identitaria, ¿no? Como además una operación de este calibre pues hace que la gente no solo hable del proyecto, lo conozca, sino que formen parte del mismo. Yo siempre digo que los técnicos estamos en los lugares un periodo de tiempo, pero tiene que haber una traslación de esa responsabilidad, de ese interés por parte del que toma el proyecto, porque nosotros no estamos a cargo de su mantenimiento ni de su consecución. La arquitectura como proceso social, esto es un proyecto en Noruega, en el cual organizaron un concurso para remodelar esta plaza. Cuando yo vi la plaza, yo dije, esto en mi país no es una plaza, esto en mi país es 2 aparcamientos con una calle en medio, ¿no? Entonces, bueno, la plaza que a principios del siglo XX había sido una plaza donde se juntaban los granjeros de la zona, donde se hacía el mercado los sábados, se había convertido básicamente en un espacio para los coches, ¿no? En ese sentido, uno de nuestros intereses y una de los retos que teníamos que tener era cómo empezar a transformar esa plaza a través de operaciones puntuales, a través de experiencias piloto a escala 1:1 que permitiesen a la gente visualizar que ese aparcamiento podía ser mucho más que una plaza. Por supuesto, quitar el coche es absolutamente problemático, como nos va a contar Ángel con millones de años de experiencia sobre el tema, y sigue siendo, a pesar de las millones de experiencias que hay en el mundo y en Europa en concreto, sigue siendo polémico porque la gente quiere seguir llegando con el coche a la puerta del comercio o a la puerta de su casa. Sin embargo, a través de esta operación puntual realizada por Guamistura, de cómo transformar un aparcamiento en 2 días en un tapiz, empezamos a realizar una serie de actividades de manera que no era ya tanto discutir sobre planos y futuribles, sino cómo se pueden proveer experiencias que permitan a la gente sentir, visualizar y entender de lo que estamos hablando, ¿no? Realizamos una serie de talleres con la Universidad de Bergen. Las actividades se llamaron Green Hammer, Cream Hammer, la ciudad se llama Hammer y el proyecto se llama Dream Hammer. Y de nuevo, cómo podíamos generar una comunidad en torno al proyecto. Es decir, no es solo importante proveer de un diseño final, sino cómo a través de estas experiencias se generó una comunidad de gente interesada en hacer una serie de actividades una vez que nosotros nos fuésemos, ¿no? Que es una de las cosas, como decías, el legado que dejamos, ¿no? Es decir, nosotros estamos temporalmente, pero tiene que haber alguien que verdaderamente tenga ese interés, ¿no? Se hicieron una serie de talleres, todos los 1.400 estudiantes de la ciudad en sus colegios hicieron proyectos para la plaza, con lo cual se convirtió de nuevo se convirtieron como en embajadores del proyecto, ¿no? El proyecto era muy ambicioso y tenía una serie de elementos, se construyó solo parcialmente. Uno de los temas que salió en los talleres fue el tema del agua, a pesar de que la plaza está frente a un lago que es el lago MOUSSAVI, de 100 kilómetros por 30 kilómetros, pero querían pensaban que, ellos decían, queremos patinar como los alemanes, vestidos, ¿no? Vestidos con abrigo, ¿no? Es decir, ellos tienen una conexión con la naturaleza muy fuerte y querían tener una experiencia urbana, ya que básicamente lo que está pasando en la ciudad es que todos los centros comerciales de la periferia están atrayendo y capturando toda la actividad, de manera que la ciudad se está vaciando, ¿no? Entonces, como digo, se construyó este elemento que es absolutamente polivalente porque es agua en verano, es una plaza de patinaje en invierno y es también un stage donde se han realizado numerosos conciertos y básicamente una de las cosas que habíamos detectado en este proceso de comunicación con la gente y bueno, de nuestro propio análisis es que lo que faltaba en la plaza era programación. La plaza no podía ser exclusivamente un elemento contemplativo, sino que había que traer programa y de ahí vino un poco el tema del patinaje, ¿no? Esta es la postal navideña de la ciudad del momento de la inauguración. La arquitectura como catalizador urbano, seguro que conocéis muchos de vosotros este proyecto, ¿no? Como a través del acondicionamiento climático de un espacio público, somos capaces de transformar un espacio como este. Ese es el estado de la calle original, donde veis los árboles, ¿no? La sombra que pueden dar esos árboles en pleno verano, y donde el espacio está diseñado exclusivamente para el coche y para la velocidad del coche, y donde no hay confort ninguno para que la gente pueda salir, de manera que el urbanismo está definiendo absolutamente el comportamiento y la vida de las personas, ¿no? Y cómo un cruce de dos calles se convierte en un espacio público que ha sido utilizado y sigue siendo utilizado para numerosos eventos, y es una de las cosas emocionantes que tenemos los arquitectos cuando vemos que la gente se reinventa la arquitectura y es capaz de conquistarla y darle nuevos usos, y bueno, es un poco lo que es emocionante. Esto es un trabajo que estamos haciendo para la ciudad, para Bangladesh, y de nuevo esa capacidad catalizadora, ¿no? Como una ciudad con millones de problemas medioambientales, sociales, económicos, donde el espacio público es prácticamente inexistente, hay una falta de recursos impresionante, pero tienen un préstamo del Banco Mundial, quieren actuar, quieren hacer algo que tenga una relevancia, y a pesar de que el préstamo es muy grande, se corre el riesgo de que efectivamente quede desapercibido o inadvertido porque los problemas son gigantescos, ¿no? Y en ese sentido volvemos otra vez a la escala de la arquitectura. ¿Cómo podemos identificar oportunidades arquitectónicas para que efectivamente eso tenga un impacto urbano y un impacto en la vida de las personas, ¿no? Entonces trabajamos identificando una serie de elementos y cómo a través de nuevo, de la arquitectura, que además tiene una componente social, son unos centros sociales que tienen posibilidades de ocio, educación y formación para los más jóvenes, que no tienen esas posibilidades, cómo podemos empezar a generar esa dinámica reparadora que básicamente cambie las dinámicas sociales. La arquitectura para la equidad social, ¿no? También FARSHID ha mencionado esto. Esto es un proyecto en la ciudad de Cuenca, en Ecuador. La ciudad de Cuenca está listada es Patrimonio de la Humanidad de la UNESCO, tiene una estupenda arquitectura, sin embargo, el centro histórico todavía sigue lleno de vehículos privados que transitan sin ningún problema. Entonces, este proyecto surge porque están cambiando y generando un nuevo sistema de movilidad basado en el tranvía, ¿no? Y se va a quitar todo lo que es el tráfico privado del centro. De nuevo, otra vez, sabemos que esto va a ser un problema porque la gente está muy acostumbrada a poder aparcar, y una de las oportunidades que surge es que los patios de manzana, que han sido aparcamientos durante los últimos 50 años, se van a convertir en espacios de oportunidad. Y el proyecto se trataba de identificar, de acuerdo, surge esta oportunidad, qué patios son los más interesantes y cómo podemos empezar a generar una dinámica positiva para que la gente lo perciba como una oportunidad y no como un problema, ¿no? De manera que hicimos una serie de actividades con todos los que pudimos, ¿no? Cuando nos preguntaron ¿con quién queréis hablar de la ciudad? ¿Con el Departamento de Parques y Jardines? No, queremos hablar con educación, con desarrollo económico, con mantenimiento, con seguridad, con parques y jardines, etcétera, etcétera, porque el espacio público es la intersección de todos estos aspectos. Y si no somos capaces de entender todo esto, haremos un espacio público que fracasará. De nuevo, interesante esta interdisciplinariedad y esta comunicación que a veces no tiene lugar. Las ciudades trabajan en departamentos, son estructuras extraordinariamente complejas, y nos ha pasado en muchas ocasiones que vas a trabajar para un departamento y realmente este no sabe lo que está haciendo el otro o no tienen voluntad de cooperar, ¿no? De manera que hace que lamentablemente sean más ineficientes. Hicimos una serie de talleres con los estudiantes, les lanzamos a la calle, 100 estudiantes, 10 preguntas, 1000 inputs, ¿no? ¿Cómo podemos trasladar y traducir todos esos inputs y toda esa energía en un conocimiento que nosotros no tenemos, porque llegamos a la ciudad pero no vivimos allí y tenemos que agilizar ese proceso de impregnarnos de qué es lo que está pasando. Una serie de herramientas digitales que hacen trasladar esa información de manera que esa plataforma es abierta, accesible y perdura más allá del proyecto, y cómo a través de todo este análisis vamos decidiendo, pasamos de 108 espacios a 26 a 6. En paralelo, los colegios también hicieron esta actividad y con esto llegamos a una lista corta, ¿no?, de 6 elementos, algunos de ellos más de acupuntura, de cómo identificar un parking de un edificio público y transformarlo en una biblioteca, un colegio abandonado en un centro para el emprendimiento, y este proyecto, que es el más interesante y el más ambicioso, que también es una escuela que está cerrada y que a lo largo de las entrevistas identificamos que era un problema. Se acaba de cerrar ahora mismo, en mayo de este año, ya que es una escuela a la que hay 3 turnos, es decir, llegan todos los días 1000 alumnos de distintas partes de la ciudad, con lo cual esos 1000 alumnos que llegan todos los días y se van todos los días están creando todo un tejido socioeconómico alrededor. En el momento en que la escuela se cierra, esto está teniendo un impacto negativo. El edificio tiene una protección en su gran mayoría, solo hay un ala que no tiene ningún tipo de protección porque no tiene ningún valor histórico ni constructivo. Este es el patio interior, un patio de 3000 metros cuadrados, que si lo comparas con las plazas de la ciudad, nos dimos cuenta de que es la plaza más grande de la ciudad y que podía tener entradas, de hecho tiene entradas desde 3 calles, con lo cual un patio de escuela se convierte en un espacio público. Al definir el programa, una de las cosas que queríamos introducir era el tema de la vivienda social. Existe en la ciudad un elemento gentrificador que está expulsando totalmente a los locales, ya no pueden permitirse vivir en el centro, porque hay muchos norteamericanos que van allí, se vive muy bien, el clima es cálido, es muy asequible, con lo cual se mudan allí y la gente local ya no les quiere alquilar nadie y no pueden comprarse una vivienda en el centro, ¿no? Entonces, ¿cómo podemos, a través de un elemento de arquitectura, de nuevo, generar una dinámica urbana que sea atraer y recuperar a las familias al centro de la ciudad? Con lo cual proponemos un programa híbrido que incluye vivienda social, vivienda no social, vivienda libre, espacio público, comercio, una residencia de estudiantes, biblioteca, etc. Es decir, un programa híbrido que haga que se mezclen todos estos actores y es una especie de edificio, barrio, donde el espacio público no pertenece al edificio, sino que pertenece a la ciudad. La arquitectura como activismo, ¿no? También nos hemos encontrado con que, esto es el plan maestro en el Centro Histórico de Asunción, con que, de nuevo, a veces las ciudades tienen que lidiar con muchísimos problemas de mucha escala, ¿no?, infraestructurales, medioambientales, y es desbordante, ¿no? Cómo empieza una ciudad a repararse cuando siempre los presupuestos son limitados, los mandatos políticos son limitados, etcétera, ¿no? En ese sentido, nos interesan también estas acciones, ¿no? En un taller en la ciudad de Asunción con estudiantes de la universidad, ellos llevaban quejándose 10 años de que la ciudad no había sido capaz de hacer unos carriles bici y de repente en el propio taller dijeron, bueno, ¿por qué no los hacemos nosotros, ¿no? Entonces, en vez de pasar de la pasividad y de esperar a que te resuelvan los problemas, a resolverlos, ¿no? De manera que pintaron 6 kilómetros de carril en una noche. Al día siguiente estaba publicado en los medios como una acción anónima y, de nuevo, esto nos inspira, ¿no? Porque al final tiene que ser la propia ciudadanía la que transforme la ciudad, ¿no? Nos interesa esta capacidad de transformar la ciudad como en fases, en procesos, ¿no? Es decir, no se puede reparar todo en el mismo momento ni a la vez, nunca va a ser posible en ninguna ciudad, ni creo que tampoco sea positivo. Y en ese sentido, y para que no exista la excusa de que no tenían recursos, hicimos un catálogo de proyectos que van desde proyectos de $3000 hasta 300.000, hasta 3 millones, hasta 30 millones, porque son muchos los problemas de muchas escalas, ¿no? Se ha empezado con un mini proyecto, que es este proyecto de medianeras, ¿no? Cómo las medianeras se pueden convertir en lienzos. Hicieron un festival de arte invitando a más de 30 artistas de toda Latinoamérica y cómo a través de un presupuesto muy reducido logras generar una dinámica interesante, porque de repente, bueno, pues empiezan a generar rutas en la ciudad donde la gente camina, descubre y redescubre ese centro histórico que, a pesar de que es como la identidad de la ciudad, es para muchos muy desconocido. Voy a poner un pequeño vídeo.
The historic downtown district of Asunción contains 480 years of Paraguay history, where the Guarani language and cultural roots coexist with the Spanish ones. 1.3 million people and 600,000 vehicles enter Asunción daily. More than 2 million inhabitants live in its metropolitan area. Recently, the center has lost 1/3 of its population, leaving behind hundreds of abandoned buildings. 50% of its residents live now in La Chacarita, an informal neighborhood which periodically suffers river floods. "57% of the population of Asunción is under 30 years old. In 2014, the historic Downtown District Master Plan, known as Plan CHA, began to rethink the city. Combining urban strategies with pilot projects, digital tools with hands-on practice, and citizen activism with community engagement. The first step, the creation of ASULab, an open urban lab to lead the revitalization process, connecting institutions with transformative citizen-driven initiatives. Involving and linking actors, communicating, and permanently rethinking the process. Soon, different pilot projects are becoming real. Latido Americano, a stunning urban art festival. Two weeks to transform more than 40 buildings. Street artists from all over Latin America, generating multiple urban synergies. Asunción is now reinventing itself, being reborn from its very center. Asunción's heart starts beating.
Arquitectura como reciclaje. Esto es un trabajo en Hermosillo, en México. De nuevo, nos llaman por una cuestión urbana, ¿no? Lo que es el centro histórico y una de las calles principales tiene un proceso de deterioro y de abandono impresionante, hasta el punto de que muchas personas que tienen ahí una propiedad, una vivienda, son viviendas de adobe. Lo que hacen es dejar que, como es tal problema y está preservado, no pueden hacer absolutamente nada, lo que hacen es dejar que la vivienda se llene de agua, se caiga ella sola para poder utilizar el terreno para hacer algo, ¿no? En ese sentido, de nuevo, ¿no? Es cómo podemos empezar un proceso de regeneración en una ciudad que no conocemos completamente, y cómo podemos empezar a generar esos contactos, esas comunicaciones con los distintos sectores, ¿no? Generamos esta idea, ¿no? De idea activa Hermosillo, ¿no? Y a través de una serie de actividades empezamos a conocer mejor un poco el contexto. Esta es la calle. Se quería desarrollar un proceso de regeneración a partir de este eje, ¿no? Y generar una mejor conexión con el Cerro de la Campana. De nuevo, un catálogo de posibilidades y un catálogo de elementos, es decir, hay muchas cosas que se pueden hacer, tanto en el corto plazo como en el medio plazo, con distintos presupuestos, etcétera. Hicimos una ficha por cada uno de estos elementos, pero lo más interesante, de nuevo, es que pensamos que no podemos trabajar a esta escala urbana sin haber generado una arquitectura que permita que nuevos programas tengan lugar, ¿no? Entonces, en ese análisis urbano identificamos esta nave industrial que no tiene ningún valor arquitectónico, pero que sin embargo tiene un gran potencial por su posición en el barrio. Es un almacén que está funcionando ahora solo por la recogida de la ropa donada y que está en concesión con una ONG, y que básicamente no tiene ningún tipo de relación con el exterior, es decir, esta gente puede ser trasladada perfectamente a otro lugar de la ciudad. Como digo, el edificio tiene el potencial, lo primero, porque está junto a un aparcamiento, de manera que puede tener una fluctuación día-noche, de manera que se utilice de manera distinta, puede tener 24 horas, puede ser... Identificamos una serie de cosas y de iniciativas y de gente que quiere hacer cosas en la ciudad, pero que a veces no encuentra el marco o la infraestructura necesaria, ¿no? Hay temas muy interesantes de gastronomía, de tecnología, de emprendimiento, etcétera. Es un poco la condición urbana y cómo nos imaginábamos que este edificio podía funcionar durante el día, que es el aparcamiento, pero durante la noche que ese aparcamiento sea mucho más. Entonces, bueno, pues de nuevo empezamos a pensar el edificio desde el programa, cómo se puede generar a través de esos emprendedores que identificamos en el proceso de participación, que quieren hacer cosas y no han tenido la posibilidad, cómo podemos diseñar un programa que consiste básicamente en un mobiliario que puede ser utilizado para estos distintos usos, y cómo podemos reciclar una nave que, repito, no tiene ningún valor arquitectónico, pero sí que tiene un potencial urbano tremendo, a través de colocarle una nueva piel, una nueva gráfica, trabajar el espacio que está junto a ella y cómo puede generarse como un elemento de activación. Vale. Y el último proyecto que voy a contar es en West Palm Beach, en Florida. Es un concurso que surge en el año 2016, está organizado por el Van Allen Institute de Nueva York y la ciudad de West Palm Beach. Y es un concurso que evidentemente era súper atractivo y súper challenging, porque el tema era como ambicioso y complejo, ¿no? ¿Qué podemos hacer con una ciudad que es disfuncional, principalmente en los meses de verano, ¿no? Desde la foto aérea pues se ve como que es el entorno perfecto. Esto es West Palm Beach, esto es Palm Beach, por aquí vive Trump, ahí abajo. No comment. Y bueno, tiene una serie de condicionantes que hacen que, a pesar de que la ciudad tiene muchos ingredientes para ser estupenda, sin embargo no lo es, ¿no? Por ejemplo, por un lado, hay muchísima gente en todo el país que tiene su segunda vivienda en esta ciudad, de manera que realmente está bastante desocupado. Lo que es el downtown, que es el centro, hay edificios de vivienda y, sin embargo, son edificios fantasma que solo se ocupan 2 o 3 meses al año. Y por otro lado, es gente que tampoco tiene un interés en aportar mucho a la ciudad. Básicamente son gente de paso, ¿no? Esa fluctuación se ve clarísimamente en verano. En verano la ciudad está muy muerta. Como yo vengo de España y nosotros aquí tenemos una gran tolerancia al calor, a mí me parece que no está tan mal, pero básicamente la cultura de allí está muy vinculada al espacio acondicionado, al espacio aclimatado, ¿no? Hay una pirámide poblacional también interesante, ¿no? Porque a pesar de que hay gente joven y familias que se están mudando a la ciudad, como digo, hay mucha gente que se retira desde otros estados y lo que hace es mudarse allí de manera permanente. La ciudad es muy poco densa, tiene una densidad muy baja, incluso para los estándares americanos. En términos de movilidad, por supuesto, está basada totalmente en el coche, ¿no? Y para que os hagáis una idea, esta es una imagen del waterfront, ¿no? Este es el espacio que da frente al agua, es un espacio básicamente para los vehículos. Esta es la sección. Tenemos, por supuesto, hicimos un estudio de toda la movilidad y faltaba claramente, hay mucha más conectividad norte-sur que este-oeste, con lo cual la ciudad básicamente le está dando la espalda al agua. Por supuesto, todo el tema de movilidad tiene condicionantes de salud. Sabéis que, que los índices de obesidad en Estados Unidos son enormes y no tienen que ver solo con la alimentación, sino también con el modo de vida que está basado en moverse en transporte privado, ¿no? Y básicamente nos sorprendía mucho, ¿no? Como nosotros somos de fuera y vivimos en Madrid, ¿no? Y tenemos esa experiencia tan urbana y tan conectada con el espacio público y con caminar y con moverte, nos sorprendía mucho que una ciudad con todo este potencial, con este clima tan suave durante todo el año, sin embargo, aún así esté tan vinculada al aire acondicionado y al coche, ¿no? Cuando podía tener un modelo mucho más fácil y saludable. Hicimos todo el mapeo, por supuesto, de los parques, de la vegetación y también identificamos multitud de espacios infrautilizados o totalmente vacantes en el centro histórico, lo que significa que todavía hay potencial para una mayor densidad. En términos de clima, como digo, el verano es muy complicado porque la temperatura es muy alta y sobre todo la humedad también es muy alta y realmente estudiando el clima durante todo el año necesitas sombra y principalmente en el verano se hace francamente complicado estar al aire libre, ¿no? Por otro lado, como sabéis, la Florida es una zona muy expuesta a los huracanes. y hay numerosos episodios, el último en el 2017, en el otoño, de manera que también esta condición de estar frente al agua se tiene que pensar en esta perspectiva. Se sabe ya que en los próximos 100 años va a haber una subida de 1 metro, ¿no? Y bueno, pues estudiando un poco la información que había en la página web del National Climate, vimos un poco toda la inundabilidad de este frente marítimo. Como veis, esta es la condición actual, el borde es absolutamente seco, estricto, no hay ningún punto en la ciudad para entrar en contacto con el agua y a su vez en estos periodos también está muy expuesto, ¿no? El proyecto preguntaba sobre 3 espacios. El primero, el frente, el waterfront. Como veis, los árboles son de muy poco porte, hay muy poca sombra y, como he mostrado, es un espacio que está vacío la mayor parte del tiempo, excepto en los grandes eventos, ¿no? Hay como una serie de eventos a lo largo del año. Esto es el Sun Festival, un festival de música que de repente la ciudad se desborda. Este es el Boat Show, también se desborda de millonarios y gente que va a comprar y vender yates, pero lo que es en el día a día la ciudad está bastante silenciosa, ¿no? Por otro lado, los alleyways, que son estos espacios, estas calles de servicio que tienen una orientación este-oeste en este caso y que son calles que están en muy mal estado de conservación en términos de residuos, en términos de mantenimiento, etcétera. Y por otro lado, el Banyan Garage, que es un edificio de los años 70, es un aparcamiento y que básicamente la pregunta que hacía la ciudad es ¿qué podemos hacer con él? Es un edificio público, tenemos que mantenerlo, tenemos que reconsiderarlo, tenemos que reutilizar la estructura, tenemos que hacer una cosa nueva. ¿Qué programas podríamos introducir ahí para que sirvan de nuevo como un catalizador urbano, ¿no? Es el aparcamiento más utilizado de la ciudad porque es el que mejor ubicado está. Y bueno, voy a acabar con un vídeo que muestra un poco la propuesta y básicamente, de nuevo, para vincularlo a todo lo demás, ¿no? Nuestra idea era, a través de mejorar el downtown, tenemos que intentar mejorar las comunidades que están desfavorecidas en todo alrededor y generar oportunidades de ocio, de emprendimiento, de educación para todas estas personas, ¿no? Eso tiene que ver con la propuesta.
Can we dream about urban atmospheres that connect us to nature? Can we imagine merging aquatic activities in urban life? Can we combine natural elements and technologies to provide climatic comfort year-round? Can we create a flexible building that promotes entrepreneurship, citizen engagement, and digital interaction? Open Shore creates the framework to experience an urban wetland landscape. Enjoy the city while swimming. Discover a rainbow on a sunny day. Connect with others and get inspired. Open Shore proposal for West Palm Beach is based on the identification of opportunities, the definition of actions and strategies, and the achievement of key improvements towards a vision of a lively urban environment. Open Shore addresses West Palm Beach holistically, considering urban, cultural, social, economic, and environmental aspects. In order to connect the urban vision with a coherent design, we have to look into the different places and programs to carefully identify their potential. The new waterfront is an extraordinary opportunity to reconnect the city to the water, making good use of West Palm Beach's spectacular location. The Great Lawn, already a central piece in the city's urban life, will become the urban living room of West Palm Beach. The Meyer Amphitheater will be the ultimate space for great urban events and all kinds of cultural activities. The alleyways will undergo a rapid activation process, ranging from temporary interventions to the development of permanent structures to host new programs. The former Banyan Garage is reimagined as a new focal point for activities, attracting business and talent to create knowledge, cultivate culture, and foster innovation. Open Shore provides a set of tools to reimagine these places and positively shape the urban transformation of the downtown.
Bueno, y un mensaje final. ¿Qué podemos hacer todos nosotros, todos los que estamos aquí en la sala? pues irnos con mucha energía a trabajar, a seguir trabajando, a seguir peleando y a seguir mejorando la ciudad, porque a través de la arquitectura se mejora la ciudad y se mejora la calidad de vida de los ciudadanos. Nada más. Muchas gracias.
Well, now we will start our dialogue. Really, both presentations were fantastic, and they talked about the city and how architects can transform the dreams we all have for the city, how we can transform them to reality. You know, I had first of all, I wanted to start with I had prepared just a very little text by Aldo Rossi, because I grew up in those ages last century, much before than you know. And Aldo Rossi said that the arquitectura, it's absurd to translate it into English, la arquitectura es la escena fija de las vicisitudes del hombre, con toda la carga de los sentimientos de las generaciones, de los acontecimientos públicos, de las tragedias privadas, de los hechos nuevos y de los hechos antiguos. But after this, I really loved also your introduction with Ralph Waldo Emerson text, and how the city is really the stage in which we live. No? So first of all, I wanted to ask you what type of city you are thinking about. Second, we'll talk about public spaces and continuity in the city. And after, we can end how to do it, because first of all, what type of city and what type of public space, but now how can we architects do it, with what type of tools? And also how we can transmit this, how you transmit this to younger generations and to students, because really I have learned a lot from your presentation. So first of all, we can start with what type of city do you think? Are you thinking, do you have in mind, do you think the city just like a collage with independent buildings that are set one beside another, not with any dialogue between them, or moreover you are thinking about buildings that are not alone, that they talk to the nearby buildings? Or what type of city do you think about? Yes, but as an architect, yes, not as a writer, because really we are supposed to transform into reality, you know, the dreams others have about the city. So first of all, I know, FARSHID.
I'll go, thank you. Can you hear me? Okay. Well, I mean, I think unless you are lucky or unlucky to get one of these developments where you are starting from scratch, I think you know, the relationship between a new building to other buildings in the city and what kind of city it produces, I think it very much depends on the kind of in which city, because with it develops, it comes all kinds of things. So you know, in France, an architect steps into a master plan that has already been designed by, you know, very often architects who were acting as urbanists or urbanists. And I think in Spain, you very often have that too. In Holland, you know, very often architects are brought together to kind of design a master plan before each one of them go and design perhaps a plot. In the UK, we don't have this situation. So it's a much more negotiated process where every building has to define its context, to define, you know, the potentials and the constraints, and define its vision through setting up that kind of context each time. So it's not, you don't really have the possibility of thinking of the city at large. So your contribution is really through the building itself. Now, I haven't, been in charge of one of these master plans. Even in France, when we stepped in, it was stepping into a master plan. What I tried to show was that buildings at their own scale have a role to play, have quite a lot of role to play. And I think, given the fact that most parts of our cities are shaped by private finance, to think about the city whilst being, engrossed or kind of, deeply involved in all the ordinary conventions and all the legalities that come into play with practice, plus the financial constraints, I think is something that we need to put that into the equation to think that the city is inside the project in different ways and in the ways that it can come into play. So maybe this sounds like I'm not visionary, but I do think that thinking pragmatically and thinking about practice, is perhaps playing politics at a micro scale. Perhaps it's a kind of a micro politics that I'm saying architects engage with, not macro. Of course, we can go and champion policy changes, etc. But ultimately, our instruments are at the micro scale.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so thank you. Yeah, I really share your thoughts, and I'd like to also to ask Belinda to talk about this, because I know that she's very concerned about how architecture is an active point in the city. So a building is an active point in the city that really is capable to transform, the whole environment.
Mm-hmm. Yes, connected to her comment, I would say that probably planning processes are kind of obsolete, and somehow the tools that we're dealing with are too slow compared to the speediness that we're kind of, immersed today. So it feels that somehow, the planning goes at its own pace, planning for the next 30 years, whereas we don't know we're gonna be here. How we're going to be relating to each other or working or talking to each other in 30 more years. So I just wonder how the cities could actually be more experimental, which is extremely risky or difficult sometimes, because they have to follow some rules, because there have to be some code and some rules to follow. But at the same time, I think that if that kind of creativity could actually spark in transforming the city in a more kind of a speedy way, or being able to test ideas and to actually make mistakes, so that we can actually be more dynamic and respond to people's needs and to society's needs, and to kind of, how everything is changing so fast, but still the planning tools are exactly the same that they were 20 years ago or 30 years ago. So it feels that we are not responding as professionals to this dynamic reality, and I think there is a room for that. And also that is related to the fact that, we have to define or design new tools for this kind of public participation. It was mentioned yesterday, Jose Maria was mentioning that it's not only about asking people, of course. I had a chance to work in France last year, and they were very kind of strict about that, and they say if you want to participate, you actually have to kind of know about it before that. So if you want to come for the workshops next week, you have to come this week to actually go through all this information. So it's not just about I like it or I don't like it, it's like about being really engaged. And so I think there is, there is a whole world to be explored in that direction. Mm-hmm. We are kind of testing some ideas, but still, I think, there's room for improvement. That's not a question.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree that really tools are the same as many years ago, but our way of looking at architecture is completely different.
Yes.
You said at the beginning of your lecture how you studied in some years where all the social part for architecture was not the main part, and really I've seen in your work, from that very fantastic Eco Boulevard, how this piece of architecture really changed all the area, because it transformed absolutely, the neighborhood, So maybe with similar tools, but with another way of looking at our city and at architecture, you can get along with all these projects. And in this way, I really liked also in FARSHID's presentation, the way you showed your last projects, looking towards the city, not only looking at the building, at the image of the building, but how you looked at the city through the windows of your new buildings, no? The way of looking at the city. And also, well, in your work, since first project in Yokohama, that was really also a very new project for the city, with this continuity, you know, with landscape and with with the city, you know. I'd like you to talk us about your way of thinking public space. You started thinking about public space and talking about public space. What type of public space you are thinking about? Is there a continuity, or maybe introducing nature into the city or densifying the city? Afterwards, we can also talk with Belinda about densifying the city. Well, the way of looking at the city from architecture.
I mean, with city comes density, but different cities have different densities. So I don't think architecture's fundamental problem is density, and nor is it about nature, because buildings have always had to deal with nature, with gravity, with sun and light. I don't think these are somehow new problems, even though we've sometimes forgotten that in the midst of building buildings, we've had adverse impact on nature, which I think by now in most areas of the world is almost regulated. You can't build in an unsustainable way when we are in another level where clients are boasting about the label of their, the level of investment they have in sustainability. So I personally am interested in putting, again, I say, architecture into the equation, because for so long architects have been in some ways having their architectural conversations privately as something that they kind of are doing. And when we've been discussing decision-making around the table, whether it's with clients and planners and mayors, etc., we've talked about engineering issues, just practical issues. But you give the same brief to 5 or 8 architectural teams in a competition, they come with different responses. That's the architecture. They all have to fit the program, they all have to deal with the practical issues, they all have to stand up, and they will have to be sustainable. What's the architecture? So I think it's the way we organize all of these, and how the addition of all these practical decisions produces something other than just the practical decisions, that I think becomes the architecture of the city through the buildings that we do. So I think that's what I think we should be. We should not think of architecture versus the city. That I guess is my big message.
And Belinda, about density or public spaces, because I'm really fond of your last projects. I studied quite well your project for Cuenca, Ecuador, because it was presented, it was awarded in the International Awards of the Spanish College of Architects, so compliments, because it's a very beautiful project. Not just beautiful, the images you showed, but also how much hard work of trying to know what happened in every point of the city. So just public space, density.
Yeah. Well, I think, and that is connected to her comment, I like this idea of, I don't see such a kind of a strict limit between the architecture and the city at all. It's kind of, the limit is kind of blurry. And I think it's very obvious in some of your projects that you are really dealing with, the architecture is also public space, and the public space becomes part of the architecture. So, and I think that is also something that I found kind of shocking, because when I first started to teach in the US, over there is very kind of silos. You either are an architect or an urban designer or a landscape architect, and when they ask me, what are you? I said, I don't know, I study in Madrid, I know about everything, which is kind of, it's a little bit bold, but it's a little bit like that, because at school we were dealing at different scales, we were dealing with the city, but also with the architecture, with the urban design, so I don't see the limits. For me, the limits are very artificial. Of course, there is some expertise about landscape. I mean, I understand and I have full respect for that, but I don't think that is kind of different conversation. Everything is kind of mixed, and again, believe in the power of architecture to create a better city. And that's where the limit kind of disappears. Then in terms of density, I think it was interesting because a few years ago when the Comunidad de Madrid government was trying to approve this law about the density issue, not the density, sorry, the height of the buildings, I had just come from Hong Kong at that point, and I was completely fascinated by the city because it's extremely dense, but I love this kind of energy in the public space, and I was like, how can somebody say something so abstract, like this is it, there's no room for more people in this city. So I think there is a lot of cultural kind of understanding of what density is, because that's related also to the way people relate to each other, to the kind of the personal space as well. But I think also there is room for improvement, and there is room for also not only it's a density issue, it's about how can you make more programs, more things happen together in the same space. And I think that is related to the idea of efficiency. So it's not only that maybe we need a more dense city center, maybe we need a more efficient city center so that it can operate at different levels at different times for different programs. So I think that is also kind of an interesting topic.
Yeah. So I really like this idea, and I also share it, this idea of dissolving the limits between architecture and public spaces, because really, as architects, we build this architecture that the facades of this architecture are really, the facades are the rooms of the city. So really architecture is building the rooms of the city, the places where we all share. And at this point, all these are these very interesting ideas you have about the city and about public space and about sharing a common place for living. But as architects, we have the difficult task of doing this, of making this a reality. So what tools do you guess it's necessary to have as architects to come to reality, these ideas? What tools an architect should have to build these rooms for the city?
A lot of luck.
So the secret?
No, a lot of luck.
Not only luck.
No, I mean it.
Because there are many students here.
I think, no, but I think it's important that they know that the career of an architect is also a consequence of circumstances you find yourself in. It's not about just having ideas. I would like to have built X and Y and Z, but it hasn't. We are ultimately, at the mercy of who decides to kind of ask us to work on their projects. So, what tools do you need? I think ideally you would be agile as a thinker, and you would always have your mind deeply into the kind of the task at hand, but at the same time thinking beyond it, because when we are talking about the relationship between architecture and the city, a building is an accommodation for a particular set of spaces and activities. But we are discussing what role it has beyond that. So it's having that kind of two-tier or two levels of thinking, and that requires that you look beyond also your own kind of métier, if you like, that you understand how other people look at the city, how geographers and how philosophers and how economists, think about the city, because through those I think we find new perspectives. I think it's important to think that architecture is at the crossroad of so many different kind of factors.
So it's not only luck, because it's not only luck, really, because also you've thought a lot about this. You've written 3 books, and
That's when I was not lucky. I spent time thinking.
so, and writing a book is not easy because you have to put all your thoughts in order. So
Yes, that's true.
And Belinda was talking before at how an architect, because you teach as FARSHID, you teach in Harvard, and you've also taught in Madrid, I think.
Yes.
So you were talking about how you still keep learning, no? And maybe this is something that is present at the time you are transmitting the way you look at architecture and the way you work in architecture to the students. So in which way both things, teaching and your own work as an architect, have any common points?
Okay. One remark, I don't think it's only luck. I'm sorry, you're being very humble. I
So
think, I think it's a combination of multiple factors, and luck is one, but of course hard work and stubbornness somehow, because there is, I think reality is extremely challenging and sometimes very, very disappointing, but we have to keep on fighting. And I was very inspired by your presentation. I had a technical issue yesterday, and by seeing your presentation, it's like, yes, I have to keep on fighting, because somehow, if you kind of, if you quit, you just get lost. So somehow you have to have a vision, you have to keep on working, and then of course there is some luck in the road, in that path, but it doesn't happen like that. So just for that. Regarding the teaching aspect, I think for me it's very important to always have one foot set on reality and one foot on utopia. I'm not that interested in this approach of only talking about ideas. And I'm not saying it's not interesting. I'm not personally that interested, because I'm very much a practitioner, and I deal with reality, and I have worked a lot in Latin America where reality is extremely complex. So I just can't ignore all that. So it's just when the teaching is very much just about talking about ideas or making up new problems, I always wonder, there's so many existing problems already in the world that it would be great to have so many creative people coming up with solutions for it. So, but then at the same time, it's not only about reality, because reality is kind of demolishing and destroying everything, and there would not be any option of improving or innovating if you just stick to reality. So reality is there. So of course we need to aim high. We need to aim for the best, and keep on fighting. So there is a lot of hard work also, and then of course this idea of being connected to academia and always teaching makes me feel very young, because I'm always learning. So I consider myself also a student. It's like, yeah, sure. I mean, I keep on learning every time, so I feel extremely young and privileged of being exposed to so many realities.
So not only luck, but also looking at the world with the eyes of an architect, and also hard work. But of course, previous knowledge, I suppose, previous knowledge about architecture, no? So also, I'd like to ask the audience for some questions, because it's really a great opportunity to have here FARSHID and Belinda. So I'd like to preguntar a quién darle la palabra a la audiencia para sus comentarios, para sus preguntas a FARSHID y a Belinda después de estas presentaciones. Sí, por favor, hablar en español, hablar en...
Hola. Thank you so much for your presentations. They were very inspiring. I had a question for both of you, but more related to Belinda's presentation. We're talking about less architecture, more city, or maybe another architecture doing more city, better architecture, someone said yesterday. Apart from architects, what else do we need in our teams to be able to do these better or more cities? Do you have, like, what are your teams? How are your teams? What do you have at your studios?
The teams. I mean, of course, as I was saying, I don't like silos, and of course, I think we're becoming more and more hybrid, and also reality is so complex that it cannot just be approached from a physical point of view, and any kind of urban project has got environmental issues, social issues, economic issues, so it's not just a design kind of approach, even if design can be very therapeutic and great, but it still is not the only component. So we collaborate with all this expertise, depending on the size, on the scale, and on the context in particular that we need to work with. And I think it's not only important to incorporate them as part of the team, I think it is important to have that conversation, because again, we keep on learning, and we need to see the city as from different points of view, and it's a very enriching process. So yes, I don't know if you want to answer.
People often talk about collaboration as a kind of as a sexy thing to do. But collaboration is not a choice. When I am working on a project, I'm required to work with lots of different other people. So you have all kinds of engineers you work with planning consultants, you work with lighting consultants, you work with security experts, you work with rights of light consultants. It doesn't stop. And they're actually all incredible resource for the architect. And I think the challenge is how somehow architects enter this process and find an architectural kind of path to bring it all together. So I think collaboration is a fact of life, and it's because we demand so much more of our buildings, and it's there. You could argue that if, as an architect, you introduce that during, let's say, a competition process where it's not forced on you, if you like, or given to you, you are kind of fast-forwarding it as a more of a collaborative approach. But you could also look at the architectural office itself and realize that it's also not just me alone working on projects. So I think that architectural projects are about collaboration. But it's also about finding clear avenues. And inside an office, you ultimately need a kind of a project architect. And within the larger team, I would argue the architect is the one that binds them together.
¿Otra pregunta?
Okay. So, Belinda, I see you've talked about urban activities or architecture as activism. But given that it's usually developed in like a very legal and institutionalized, framework, how do you cope with the sort of ethical issues that it arises? Like you have like this client, which is like the one who pays, but then also like the people who are also the clients, and like your expertise, which is technical, but also the, your aim to give the people what they want.
Yeah. Even if I feel super young, I already accumulated a number of experiences, and I also accumulated a number of fines, small ones, but at these active workshops that we had at some points, it was not everybody was so pleased with it. So I think, I feel totally fine. Okay, so I think we're working on a fine line that kind of is the boundary between what is legal, what is illegal, or what is the interpretation of the code. And we had a very interesting experience when one of our first projects was the Eco Boulevard, and when we were delivering the construction document, it was interesting to see that the city was not prepared to get it because it could not be fit into any kind of a department. It was not a piece of furniture, it was not a piece of lighting. it was not a tree. So no department wanted to take care of it. So they finally call it or name it or categorize as a monument, so it had to be maintained. So at that point, I realized of how important words are and how important interpretation is, and every code is open for interpretation. So it's not that we are kind of, breaking every rule or anything like that. It's about finding the appropriateness of solutions and how to be creative, because I always think that problems that we have to deal with every day require a lot of creativity to come up with solutions that are feasible, that are legal, but it's about creativity. So it all ends up with creativity from my experience. And a couple of fines that I had at some point, but it's okay.
¿Otra pregunta, comentario? En español perfectamente. Si hay estudiantes, yo creo que es una oportunidad magnífica que venga Harvard aquí a Pamplona. No me puedo creer.
Hemos hablado mucho.
Bueno, pues...
No podemos seguir en el...
Antes de que termines, vamos a aprovechar para felicitar a FARSHID, porque hace solamente un par de días, y por eso no pudimos incluirlo en su biografía, que estaba ya impresa, ha sido incluida en la lista de la reina, así que ahora es miembro de la Orden del Imperio Británico, así que congratulations.
Bueno.
Bueno, y con esto terminamos la sesión de la mañana, pero todavía no, porque hay una entrega de premios y a continuación la pausa para el café.
Sí, solamente vamos a retrasar un poquito el café porque vamos a entregar los premios Otis, que son unos premios que organizamos la Fundación Arquitectura y Sociedad con el patrocinio de Otis para estudiantes con un programa que se les pone de antemano. Entonces, quiero también hacer otra advertencia, especialmente para estudiantes. La Escuela de Arquitectura de Pamplona está dispuesto a invitarles a comer, les llevan a la universidad para que vean cómo es el campus, etcétera, etcétera, y luego les invitan a comer. Entonces, todos aquellos que quieran ir tendrán un autobús que estará aquí al lado y en el mostrador de inscripción hay unas fichas para rellenar para que se sepa el número de personas. Entonces, ahora a continuación entramos con los premios Otis. Tendremos un representante de Otis, los directores del programa y los ganadores que estarán por ahí y que se deben ir preparando. Gracias.
Sí, yo casi prefería un micro de mano. Buenos días a todos. Muchas gracias por unirnos a nosotros en esta celebración, que pretendemos que sea un pequeño evento dividido en 3 actos. Uno es el de la presentación. Yo represento a Zardoya Otis. Hemos sido invitados por la Fundación para dar un impulso sobre todo a los estudiantes de último grado y los nuevos arquitectos, y creemos que ayudamos en este tipo de participaciones. La segunda es una presentación institucional, va a ser un vídeo de 3 minutos. Y por último vamos a hacer la entrega de premios, que es el verdadero objetivo de esta reunión, y vamos a hacer un acto de reconocimiento y poner en el escaparate a equipos de trabajo o a personas que han introducido ideas nuevas en el mundo de la arquitectura, estimulados por algunos de los tópicos que queríamos tratar. Y una pequeña reflexión antes de pasar a la parte de la presentación, y es, no he oído por parte de nadie en esta jornada hablar de la accesibilidad. Y desgraciadamente nos vamos envejeciendo. Yo me lo noto. Y cuando la accesibilidad es una actividad troncal, es algo que se asimila dentro de la arquitectura, no hay problema. Pero cuando es algo sobrevenido, es algo que tenemos que pensar en ello, es un problema muy serio. Fijaros que en 1853 se inventó el ascensor como lo conocemos hoy en día y ha sido una herramienta en manos de la arquitectura. Ha cambiado la fisonomía de las ciudades. Y yo creo que el reto de este siglo es conseguir que esa herramienta sea una herramienta para las personas también. Y nosotros somos industriales, no tenemos la sensibilidad ni tenemos esa ingente cantidad de trabajo de transformar la ciudad entera, pero sí somos una herramienta para las personas y yo creo que podemos ayudar mucho a eliminar esas barreras que condicionan tanto a tantas personas o que nos van a condicionar con el paso del tiempo. Sin más, os voy a poner un pequeño vídeo, son 3 minutos, son muchos flashes. Yo creo que lo más importante de todo eso es que penséis que estamos trabajando no solamente en una manera industrial, sino en una manera de responsabilidad corporativa para intentar que estos problemas sean menores. Y después de eso, pues Juan Domingo y Carmen, que son los tutores de estos premios y jueces y que han aportado todo su cariño y su ciencia para seleccionar los premiados, van a ser los directores de la entrega de estos premios. Muy bien. ¿Puedes poner el vídeo, si me haces el favor?
We don't compromise. We better ourselves. We offer new solutions to our customers. We discover new niches in the market. Innovate. This is how we do it. We took Gen 2 technology as our starting point, and we designed a machine that integrates brake and motor. Today, our green power machine, manufactured in San Sebastian, is the most efficient on the market, the one that moves Gen 2 elevators that are manufactured and sold all over the world. Efficiency, performance, comfort. The market led us to look for greater capacity in the same space, and we created the Gen 2 Flex, an elevator that maximizes space in hoistways. Now, 6 passenger cars can travel in the same space as 4. We kept thinking of our customers, and we arrived at the Gen 2 Switch, the first elevator capable of operating with single-phase current of 230 volts, that only needs 500 watts of power. It provides huge savings in the electricity bill and is capable of making 100 runs without connection to the grid. A revolution. Moreover, if it is connected to appropriate photovoltaic panels, it is the only elevator on the market capable of operating exclusively with solar energy. A 100% clean elevator. And to fit into all hoistways, no matter how small, we made possible what seemed impossible with the Gen 2 Switch mic, an elevator that can be adapted to minimal spaces and thus achieve a more accessible world.
In the event of power failure, the Gen 2 Switch continues to operate normally, which increases the safety of passengers. We innovate to improve people's lives.
And yet, we still had to develop the best product for a niche market on the rise, the single-family home. As we are passionate about challenges, we designed the Gen 2 Home, the first electric platform lift that uses flat belts and brings all the advantages of safety, comfort, and energy savings to this market. Moreover, our elevators are unique and different because we incorporate eView as standard, the first communication system that keeps passengers connected to the world by video conference. It permanently monitors elevator operation and allows building owners to customize the content displayed on the screen. Taking efficiency to the highest level, we developed the Genesis, a key product designed for a sector where what matters are not appearances. To introduce new technologies into existing elevators, we created the Gen 2 Mod that transforms the obsolete ones, making them safer and more ecological. A system that allows elevators to be modernized and converted into latest generation equipment without the need to replace them. Yes, we keep moving. We never stop. Where there is no elevator, we find the way to install one, creating hoistways where they do not exist through self-supporting structures.
Our leadership in the building the system market is due to our technology and ability to provide turnkey solution to customers.
The focus on the customer has led us to put in operation an innovative management system for the maintenance portfolio called Risk to Value Management. This management model gives us the perfect tool to stay one step ahead of the possible needs of our customers and therefore reduce cancellation significantly. And to offer our customers a more complete service, we created our automatic doors subsidiary, Portis, which in a short time has become the market leader. But we have a non-conformist spirit, and so we launched ourselves out to sea. Our division, Otis Marine, located in Vigo, designs and manufactures elevators for the naval sector and has incorporated flat belt technology into elevators for ships. That's the way we are. We never stop. Always innovating, always moving. Because what moves us is to keep the world moving. Otis. Made to move you.
Bueno, nosotros queremos agradecer a Otis que siga contando con nosotros para este premio y este concurso, porque nos parece además que es muy interesante para los estudiantes y para proponer soluciones creativas en torno a la accesibilidad y la adecuación de estos espacios, ¿no? Y bueno, vamos a hacer la entrega de la 4ª edición del premio Otis FAI de Arquitectura, que está destinado a estudiantes de escuelas de España y Portugal y a jóvenes arquitectos, que se desarrolló con el título, el tema que propusimos se llamaba Venecia Sensate, y se trataba de desarrollar una propuesta en el Jardín de San Marcos de Venecia junto al Arsenale. Nosotros queremos destacar la numerosa participación que ha habido y la calidad de las propuestas con soluciones muy creativas y novedosas en torno al programa propuesto. Era un programa de actividades culturales y lúdicas en unos espacios existentes junto al en el Jardín de San Marcos, en el que existían unas estructuras de unos gasómetros abandonados, y tenían que proponerse estas actividades en relación con la Bienal de Arquitectura y de Arte que se celebra. Procedemos ya a la entrega, ¿no?, de estos premios, y se han dado 3 accesis y 3 premios. El primero de las accesis al proyecto Brícole, de José Inglés y Víctor Pérez Sánchez, que creo que están por aquí, ¿no? ¿No están por aquí?
Vuelve a decir, bajar. Dile que baje.
Es tímido.
Es un proyecto que juega con uno de los elementos característicos del paisaje de la Laguna de Venecia, los brícoles, para plantear de manera sugerente una nueva escenografía en el lugar que enlaza las nuevas actividades y espacios existentes. Muy bien. Hay 2 accesis más que no han podido venir a recogerlo, que os voy a decir su nombre. Era el proyecto de Agua Alta, de José Antonio Costela Mellado y Gádor Potenciado Enciso, y otro proyecto que se llamaba Inside Out, la feria fabricada, de Cristina Baraja González e Irene Rodríguez Pérez, pero no han podido venir. Procedemos a entregar el segundo premio, el segundo será el tercero, ¿no? Me han puesto aquí el segundo, pero yo creo que el tercero. A ver, esto está contradictorio. Es que aquí pone segundo. Pero está bailado, yo creo, ¿eh?
Pero no, el segundo premio...
El segundo premio, vale.
No, pero en realidad...
El tercero, ¿no?
El tercer premio, claro. Pero es que me parece que los chicos... No
bueno, es que hay tantos que...
Este es el segundo, pero deberíamos entregar el tercero, ¿no? El tercer premio, este es el tercero, este es el segundo.
Vale, es que está aquí. Vale, pues el tercer premio. La jungla del agua entre campos, de Ignacio López Jiménez, Macarena Fernández Molina y Alba Méndez. Y lo que se ha valorado por parte del jurado en esta propuesta es la apuesta por la creación de una nueva torre mirador y un patio de agua en torno a los gasómetros, que propicia la relación entre el agua, la tierra y las actividades. El segundo premio para el proyecto Abrimos las puertas y se escapó el jardín, de Alba Jiménez Nava y Mario Martínez Antonio. Se ha premiado por la manera sugerente de plantear las conexiones entre los gasómetros abandonados, incorporando las actividades en su interior y explorando diferentes tipos de enlaces y recorridos entre las construcciones existentes en el ámbito. Y por último, el primer premio, que no ha podido venir a recogerlo porque está trabajando en el extranjero. Y bueno, ha sido para el proyecto Patios del Mundo, que es una propuesta de gran interés que trabaja de manera imaginativa las conexiones entre la tierra y el agua, jugando con los conceptos que construyen esta ciudad, el agua, las islas y la conectividad. Y el autor del proyecto es Rafael López Toribio. ¿Lo recoges tú? Vale. Pues lo recoge Juan. Pues ya está. ¿La foto de todos los premiados? Sí, podéis subir todos los...